Hey guys, host of Investigate Joe Rogan here. Normally, of course, I'm fact-checking episodes of JRE, but this is obviously a different kind of episode today. People have been asking me to make a guest tier list, and I thought this would be a good time. Sadly, Joe Rogan recently died of coronavirus, and there will be no new episodes of JRE until he is revived using ancient vitamin D rituals. Obviously, there have been a lot of guests in JRE history, at least 50 or something like that. So I'll only be ranking recurring guests who have been on the podcast more than once. First off, we have Bill Burr. Bill Burr has been a guest on JRE many times, mostly to promote his own podcast, where he discusses his hatred of fat people and how New England sports teams are currently doing. Billiam is always a funny guest. However, I cannot put him high on the tier list due to our personal history. Bill Burr once crashed his helicopter into my house, and then when he got out, he didn't even apologize. He just kept telling me that statistically speaking, you're more likely to get into a car accident. Then he told me to subscribe to ButcherBox and just left. So this guy owes me like $50,000, and for that I place him in the D tier. Next we have Mike Baker. Mike Baker is one of my favorite guests of all time. He used to be in the CIA, and I'm really glad he keeps coming on. The CIA is really cool, and I'm sure whatever they're up to now is cool and good. Mike Baker definitely goes into the A tier. Alex Jones is another high tier guest. Alex Jones has been on 3 times for a combined total of 479 hours of JRE airtime. Before Alex Jones ever came on the show, I was using a lot of Joe Rogan's On It products, Alpha Brain, Shroom Tech, and so on. But after episode 911 with Alex Jones, I made the switch to Super Male Vitality from InfoWars, and things have been going a lot better for me ever since. I have multiple girlfriends now, and I have been winning my regular battles with the shadow people in my room, whereas before I would typically lose those battles, which is really bad. Those are must-win battles, trust me. So he goes in the S tier. Duncan Trussell. This guy made an animated show with Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, called The Midnight Gospel. I really like Adventure Time, so I was excited when I saw that. But then it turned out to not really be a show. It was more like animation to go with episodes of this podcast. And then the animation wasn't really that good. Like, they didn't have that many frames. It was not as good as Adventure Time, definitely. I was disappointed, and honestly, I was kind of pissed off, so I'm putting him in the E tier. Jocko is a much better guest. Hearing him talking about waking up at 3 a.m. was so inspiring that I went ahead and followed in his footsteps by joining the Marines. Hopefully, I get to be part of the reinvasion of Afghanistan in a couple of years. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but Afghanistan has a lot of lithium, which is basically going to be the oil of the future. So we're going to need to go back and just get that real quick. Just real fast, in and out. Just a quick invasion this time. I would put Jocko in the A tier. Neil deGrasse Tyson has been on a bunch of times, I think. I don't like this guy though, because he's kind of a globe head, if you know what I mean. He's always saying that the earth is round and other cringe things like that. Also on Twitter, he said that Star Wars is unrealistic, when in fact Star Wars is very realistic. If you don't believe me, just wait, because I am making an 8-hour video explaining why Star Wars is realistic. That's going to come out pretty soon, so be sure to watch for that. Overall, I would put Neil in the D tier. If you want to see a real scientist, just watch the Lex Friedman episodes. This guy is a genius. He has contributed so much to science and technology. Just a huge list of things. So many things, I can't even put them in the video. He just has so many accomplishments and papers and things. So many that you shouldn't look into it either, don't worry about it. He's basically Einstein. Let's just leave it at that and put him in the A tier. The other really good science guests are Eric and Brett Weinstein. I'm ranking them together because they're brothers, and because I honestly never really remember who is who. These guys have done so much in-depth, rigorous, peer-reviewed, laboratory, groundbreaking, hardcore, influential, powerful, scientific science research about how liberals on Twitter are bad. Really just good scientific stuff from these guys. I would put them in the B tier. Sadly, they do lose points for all that stuff their dad did, or else they would be in the A tier. Graham Hancock. Whenever he's on, I think about the animated movie Atlantis. I guess technically it's called Atlantis: The Lost Empire or something like that. It's such a weird movie. It's almost hard to believe that it was made by Disney. It really doesn't feel like there are other animated movies. It has a very unique aesthetic that I don't think any other movie has replicated since. If you haven't seen it since you were a kid or whatever, you probably don't really remember. But they're actually on the submarine for like half the movie, it feels like. And then when the submarine sinks, hundreds of people die and they just never really address it. It's really not a very kid-friendly movie. And it's basically a documentary, according to Graham Cracker, so I will put him into the C tier. Abby Martin might be the guest who has changed my opinion the most. I used to think that China was bad because they basically run an authoritarian surveillance state and put people into concentration camps. But then Abby Martin came on and pointed out how they've never invaded Iraq, which made me realize that they're actually good. Really mind-blowing stuff. A tier for her. My other favorite political guests are Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty. I'll be ranking them together because they're siblings, just like the Weinsteins. Their shtick is that they are friends even though one of them is liberal and one is conservative. But the real secret shtick is that they're both basically liberals. I have a lot of respect for Crystal in particular, because her parents gave her a gimmick name, Crystal Ball, and she's just wrote it out instead of changing it. She just owns it. I also respect her for getting away with LARPing as a grassroots socialist activist, when in reality she's a millionaire venture capitalist. That last part isn't a joke, by the way. Go look at her Wikipedia page and then look up who she's married to. It's pretty funny. For this, I would put them in the B tier. Lastly, we have Jamie. You may not think of Jamie as being a guest, but technically he is a guest. I consider myself to be the #1 Jamie fan. I created the subreddit r/Jamie, where fellow Jamie fans can come to discuss Jamie's body of work. Please do not visit if you're just another troll. I will ban you. Young Jamie IRL XX365, if you're watching this, I know that you're not the real Jamie. And if you try to join again, I will just ban you again, so don't even bother. Anyway, that's my tier list. I'm pretty sure that this is every guest who's ever been on more than once. There's only like 50 or so episodes of JRE total, so I think this is accurate. Hopefully this young comic, Rogan, keeps hosting this podcast and we get a lot more episodes in the future. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out my podcast, Investigate Joe Rogan.